A warm welcome. I am Dia Philippides. A warm welcome to all who are joining us today on this joyous occasion, the presentation of the first online results of the Census of Modern Greek Literature project, a first viewing by the public of the new census site, and in particular of the large section of the census that focuses on Greek authors of the 19th and the 20th centuries. Please allow me just a brief greeting in Greek. Καλώς ήρθατε στην παρουσίαση, την πρώτη παρουσίαση του Census. We are using English in that it is the major international language through which we are viewing the culture and contemporary literature of Greece today. I've been chosen to speak first because I've been connected with the census for the longest continuous time, since it was an idea. From the start of this event, I wish to thank all those who have worked with us, those who have supported the census project over time, bringing it from an idea into an actuality, and in particular now the persons from whom we shall hear introductory remarks. First, allow me to welcome Mr. Konstantinos Mazarakis Enyan, the General Director of the Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation. The foundation, which is a public benefit cultural organization founded by Panos and Marilena Laskaridis, defines its mission as the promotion of Greek culture and especially Greek letters, historical and nautical research in both Greece and abroad. Mr. Mazarakis, also a Vice Admiral of the Navy and an honorary leader of the Greek fleet, has stood at the helm of the census's connection with the foundation ever since we were first introduced in 2019. Mr. Mazarakis, I invite you to the speaker's cyber platform.
Thank you very much, Professor Philippides. Today, the Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation is proud to announce the first presentation of the website, The Census of Modern Greek Literature, a bibliography for the English-speaking world. The census is a significant international project that facilitates access to Greek literature for speakers of English by providing references to all English language translations of modern Greek literature and to all studies in English that relate to modern Greek literature from the 12th century to the present. This will be the end target. With today's announcement, the board of directors of the Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation feel happy that we have been able to assist the census directors, Dia Philippides, Professor Emerita, Boston College, and Wim Bakker, Professor Emeritus, Department of Byzantine and Modern Greek Philology, University of Amsterdam. We also thank Professor Maria Boletsi, holder of the Marilena Laskaridis Endowed Chair of Modern Greek Studies, University of Amsterdam, for her support. We need to thank and not forget the members of the ad hoc teams of researchers, fellowship recipients in Boston and Amsterdam, as also the technical team in Boston. Access to the census website will be free to all. Researchers will be able to search for information and to access text and original sources directly, wherever copyright allows, of course. The website will be fully extensible. The census's bibliographic collection aims to function as a standard work of reference for students and faculty in modern Greek studies, as a guide to translators, and an innovative resource for libraries building collections in Hellenic studies. This project opens a new window on Greek literature of the last 9 centuries and provides a vital portal to modern Greek literature for an English-speaking audience. For the hard work put in by all involved, we feel proud and sure that the project will continue with the same speed and impetus it has had for the last 3 years now. Thank you.
Mr. Mazarakis, thank you for your meaningful words and for our special collaboration with the foundation and with you personally. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Stratos Efthymiou, a career diplomat working for the Hellenic Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Soon it will be 5 years that he has held the post of Consul General of Greece in Boston. During that time, he has been very effective in the active promotion of numerous initiatives. I am most aware naturally of the academic events, but I assure you that there are many other successful connections that are due to Mr. Efthymiou. Highly educated, experienced in international affairs and public diplomacy, we are lucky to have with us today a person who has previously served as a spokesperson of the Greek Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Efthymiou.
Thank you, Professor Philippidis. And one more connection that I need to promote is a direct flight connecting Boston to Athens. So you are all welcome to come to Boston. And we are, of course, very glad that we connect our diaspora and our academic universe here to Greece. So good afternoon, everybody from Boston. And I would like to start by thanking Professor Dia Philippidis for inviting me to today's historic, in a way, presentation of the census of modern Greek literature. I want to commend Professor Philippidis for her tireless academic work all those years and decades. Dia has been a true cultural ambassador for Greece in the US, very respected in Boston's and not only academic circles. And I want to thank her very much for her leadership in conceiving and building this monumental collection that will be used as a standard frame of reference for years to come. And of course, I want to praise the Katerini Laskaridis Foundation for this laudable endeavor. This is a great philanthropic initiative promoting the humanities and the understanding of the Greek cultural production. And I want to point out the project's democratic nature, since it will allow open access to thousands of literary entries, English translations, and relevant studies. I'm certain that this very important effort will serve as a significant contribution towards the easier access of the English-speaking audience to modern Greek literature, thus paving the way for its broader study and appreciation. Last year here in Boston, we organized a series of celebrations of the Greek Revolution's bicentennial, and I'm glad that the census is part of the Foundation's 1821-2021 initiative. Dear friends, today we have the opportunity to celebrate and highlight the richness of the Greek language through a bibliographical mosaic, I would say, a mosaic that is capturing the modern Greek identity and our collective Greek imaginary and soul. Very often we Greeks make the mistake to preach to the converted. This is not the case of the census, as this new amazing platform allows us to go way beyond our community and reach a wider audience. So congratulations to all involved in the establishment of the census, which I'm sure will serve as a cultural arc, safeguarding the spiritual life of modern Greece. Thank you very much.
Mr. Efthymiou, thank you for your generous words, your vision of the project into the future, and your beautiful phrasing that you have contributed to us this evening. We know that you have a very busy schedule and appreciate very much the time you have put into preparing to talk in front of our audience and to be here in person. Thank you. Now I turn to introduce Maria Bolletzi, who is endowed professor of modern Greek at the University of Amsterdam, where she holds the Marilena Laskaridis Chair of Modern Greek Studies. She also works as an assistant professor in film and comparative literature at Leiden University. This semester, she is a research fellow at the Netherlands Institute for Advanced Study in Amsterdam, doing research within the group project The Politics of Defamiliarization, the Common and the Strange in Contemporary Europe. Maria works in the fields of modern Greek studies, comparative literature, and cultural analysis, and has just completed her latest monograph entitled Spectres of Cavafy, which is forthcoming by Michigan University Press. Professor Bolezzi, please speak.
Thank you very much, Dia, for this introduction, and good morning to the people in Boston. Good afternoon or good evening, everyone, depending on where you're watching us from. It's my great pleasure to say a few words now about the part of the census that has recently been linked to the University of Amsterdam. Now, the census has a long history. It has followed the institutional affiliations of its principal investigator, Professor Philippidis. It began at Harvard University in the early 80s, and then it continued to develop at Boston College until 2018, when the census became independent, so inviting in new partners. Now, the Amsterdam connection of the census began in early 2020, when we formed a team of 3 Amsterdam-based researchers who started working on the census with the support of the Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation and under the aegis of the Marilena Laskaridis Chair of Modern Greek Studies. This Amsterdam team consists of 3 very talented researchers from different career stages, which are all linked in different capacities to the Marilena Laskaridis Chair or to the Department of Modern Greek at the University of Amsterdam. Now, this team has been collaborating with the team in Boston, where the headquarters of the project are, under the constant guidance of Dia Philippidis, and working on the section Greek authors from the 19th to the 21st centuries, which we will be presenting today. Now, this connection between Boston and Amsterdam has, of course, been a long-distance relationship, also inevitably, because the start of this collaboration of the census with Amsterdam coincided with the start of the pandemic. Now, fortunately, we did manage to all meet each other live for a few days in February 2020, when Dia Philippidis and Wim Bakker visited us in Amsterdam in order to train the researchers that would work on the census from Amsterdam. And after this first meeting, the team has been working with Professor Philippidis from a distance. Of course, it's one of those long-distance relationships that have proved to be quite successful and long-lasting. And the technical possibilities that have opened up during the pandemic for online collaborations have made that collaboration even smoother. Now, before I present the researchers of this Amsterdam Dream Team, I want to note that the Amsterdam connection of the census didn't exactly start in 2020. In fact, it goes a long way back, given, of course, that Professor Wim Bakker, with whom Professor Philippidis has been leading the census, held the chair at the Department of Modern Greek and Byzantinology in Amsterdam from 1972 to 1996, when he moved to the US. So the Amsterdam connection was already there through those special ties of the project's leaders with Amsterdam. So now I will turn to the 3 researchers collaborating with the census in Amsterdam to briefly present them in alphabetical order. And they will not speak themselves today, but they will be spotlighted as I introduce them. So starting with Anthi Argyriou. Hi, Anthi. Anthi is an art historian curator who is currently also a PhD candidate at the Amsterdam School for Cultural Analysis at the University of Amsterdam. And she's writing a thesis on alternative representations of mobility and migration in speculative fiction-based contemporary art. Anthi has also taught courses in the BA program in literary and cultural analysis at our university. And she also works as a project manager at the non-profit organization Antigone, Information and Documentation Center on Racism, Ecology, Peace, and Nonviolence. So now I'm moving on to the second team member, Yorgos Eugenios Douliakas. There he is. Hi, Yorgos Eugenios. Yorgos Eugenios is also a PhD candidate in cultural analysis at the University of Amsterdam. His doctoral project examines the trial of the Golden Dawn Party in Greece as a theater of justice, and focusing on the relation between law, theatricality, and the media in this trial. And he's also interested in literary translation. And at the moment, he also holds a short-term teaching position at Leiden University, where he teaches on contemporary literature and art in context of crisis, and also on questions of law and justice. And the third member of our team, Dr. Charalambos Passalis, who will appear on the screen now. Hi, Charalambos. Charalambos is working at the moment as guest lecturer at the University of Amsterdam, at the Department of Modern Greek Studies, and as a high school teacher at the Greek school Athena in Amsterdam. For many years, he has been an external researcher at the Center for the Greek Language, το Κέντρο Ελληνικής Γλώσσας, Department of Greek Medieval Lexicography, and a chief member of the editorial team for the Emmanuel Kriaras Dictionary of Medieval Vernacular Greek Literature. So Charalambos, Yorgos Eugenios, and Thea have been working on the census with great devotion and creativity in the past 2 years, guided by Professor Philippidis and Professor Bakker. And I think that their very varied and rich expertise and background have given a great boost to this project. So we owe them a very big thanks. I'm now giving the word back to Dia Philippidis, who will introduce the Census Boston team, and she will also outline the agenda for the rest of the event and present the census in detail. Thank you.
It's been a joy for us to collaborate with Maria Bolezzi and her select team of colleagues, now also who have become our 3 colleagues. So thank you, Maria, thank you, Anthi, thank you, Yorgo Eugenia, and thank you, Charalambos. Now, please allow me to present to you the 3 current core members of the Boston team. I start with Wim Bakker, now Professor Emeritus of the Department of Byzantine and Modern Greek Studies at the University of Amsterdam, distinguished in the field of modern Greek studies, especially for the meticulous and insightful critical editions he has published for literary works chiefly of the Cretan Renaissance, often in collaboration with his equally distinguished colleague Arnold van Gemert. To what extent willingly, but thereafter enthusiastically, since his early retirement and his move to the United States, he has donned the robes of bibliography and is the census's lead editor. To enter the census collection and be positioned in the right location, a work must pass through Professor Bakker's critical curation. Ben Florin is a senior library application developer in the Boston College Libraries and is highly versed in the processes of libraries, the mysteries behind library catalogs, and an occasional teacher of coding. In brief, the census's ideal lead technical architect. Many of the foundations for his web development on the census were laid during the 2 years when the census had a formal affiliation with the Boston College Libraries. We are very glad that Ben has chosen to manifest a love for Greece in our direction, and we hope to be able to offer him hospitality in Greece at some point. Peter Clakes, about to receive a master's degree from the Department of Philosophy at Boston College, volunteered to collaborate on the census as a first year, in fact, first term undergraduate at Boston College, at a Hellenic alumni event 7 years ago. He was at first constantly present as a research assistant, copy editing the census files in preparation for conversion to data. He made several presentations on different aspects of the census at undergraduate research day events at Boston College, became the de facto leader of the student workshop that was organized at Boston College through the winter and spring of 2018, and since 2021 has become the project manager for the census, a very long, very fruitful association. Now I'd like to outline the agenda for the rest of our event. After the introductions, we're proceeding immediately to main speakers. I shall give a presentation of the census project, followed by Ben Florin, who will give a demonstration of the website, which I'm sure is the part that you're really looking forward to. These two presentations will be followed by a Q&A session. We ask you please to use the Q&A feature of the webinar and to ignore the chat, which will actually be disabled from this function. And we would prefer, for the sake of our moderator and our technical staff that are present, that you use English, please, if possible. And then we will have closing comments at the very end. So changing hats now, we will move to the presentation and a quick review of what the census has done and is doing and hopes to be doing in the future. This event features a first presentation of the Census Project's new website, which currently features its first and extensive section on the Greek literary authors of the 19th through the 21st centuries. We thank you for joining us to witness this opening event. I am Dia Philippides, the longest term member of the Census Project team, present since its inception. Here I sit in front of a camera's unblinking eye, faced with the challenge of presenting to you what has been a preoccupation for me for over 40 years in a very short span of time. To the best fortune of the project, many others have chosen to join the team over time. Those of us who are present today are the current core team, and I shall do my best to represent them and previous colleagues in the project adequately. I shall present to you in sequence the vision and scope of the project, something of its history, some highlights of its characteristics, the linking of the census in two ways, the foundations for eventual visualization, something about reading online, the future outlook, and a roundup. And then we'll move to Floren's demo. In the space between certain sections, I plan to insert comments on the census from each of the researchers who are participating in the Amsterdam workshop and from two other friends of the census. The citing, its umbrella title, Census of Modern Greek Literature, aims to facilitate access to Greek literature for speakers of English by providing references to all published English language translations of modern Greek literature and to all published studies in English that relate to modern Greek literature from the 12th century to today. The first section, now posted online, refers to Greek authors 19th through 21st centuries. This initial section includes references to 800 Greek literary authors in approximately 7,000 entries. The time span covered coincides roughly with the 200 years since the Greek Revolution of 1821 that led to the foundation of the modern Greek state, a bicentennial richly celebrated worldwide in 2021. The census aims now first to share our record of the literary production of Greek literary authors during these 2 centuries, and thereafter to broaden out from there into other aspects of modern Greek literature of interest to speakers of English. In its prospective audience, the census aims to function as a standard work of reference for students and faculty in modern Greek studies, as a guide to translators, and an innovative resource for libraries building collections in Hellenic studies. It also hopes to attract greater numbers of scholars in other disciplines, editors, publishers, and general readers everywhere in the English-speaking world to the contemporary literature of Greece. The census should be of interest to those seeking to establish the extent of the diaspora of modern Greek literature in the major language of the Western world, and also to those seeking to familiarize themselves with modern Greek literature, but lacking the necessary skills to read it in its original language. This is a very brief summation of the fuller scope and also the more specific current focus of the Census Project and of the vision of the Census Project team. To date, our reviews from the public have been based on an early familiarity with the census from its first publication in book form in 1990. We are now opening the door again to welcome in new readers or users, this time in a different format, online with open access. Your reception of our work is invited, and your active response to what we have created, as well as your continuing support, will help to move the project ahead into the future. And here is a comment from Anthea Ririu from our Amsterdam research, in which you can see that the tracking of a poem or a scholarly text will never be the same again after the census. Now, the history of the project. The census began in response to an expressed need in teaching. In the early 1980s, George P. Savvidis, the then incumbent of the new George Seferis Chair of Modern Greek Studies at Harvard, planned to introduce a course on modern Greek literature to the university's core curriculum. At that time, he lacked sufficient bibliography, especially regarding sources, English translations of primary works, and related works of criticism and interpretation available in English. With a work group of Harvard students, we undertook the challenge of compilation. Available bibliographies at that time include those that you see on the slide. Fortunately, the Modern Greek Studies Association of North America, upon its foundation in 1968, had declared as its initial action the establishment of an annual bibliography, securing the collaboration of Mrs. Evro Layton, a trained librarian formerly in charge of the Modern Greek collection at Harvard Libraries. Evro Layton promptly introduced a new section on modern Greek literature into the Modern Language Association's annual international bibliography. We have much to thank her for, along with the MGSA's founders, including Edmund Keeley, a visionary leader for modern Greek studies in the United States, the MGSA's first president, a prolific translator and author of many critical and interpretive works, and a personal friend to many in the field of modern Greek studies, whose presence we mourn so much since his recent death. In 1990, the census appeared as a print monograph of 250 pages published by the Modern Greek Studies Association. The cover shows the full subtitle, which was responsible for the acronym Census. We originally used the term checklist as we felt like neophytes in comparison with true bibliographers such as Dimitris Daskalopoulos, who was so generous towards us. A Harvard student, Paula Touliopoulos, worked with me to set up the organization of the book. After the book's publication, other bibliographic resources for modern Greek literature appeared. But none has exactly paralleled the census's scope, so the project has continued to develop since that time, with the increasing involvement of Wim Bakker, as was mentioned before. The history of the project and its collaborations along the way are listed at the Census of Modern Greek Studies website, which also gives progress news and other information about the census. The census has benefited from funding provided by the Greek Ministry of Culture and the Onassis Foundation. Individual donors with connections to Boston College have been most generous to the project. Furthermore, the project's members have collaborated with the Greek National Book Center and with the Greek Language Center, both of which institutions were already in possession of well-developed websites of a broad scope. A significant landmark for the census came in 2016 with a new collaboration with the Boston College Libraries, the Digital Scholarship Group, and the Library System Group. In a collaboration that lasted for 2 years, the basis was set for the development of a custom designed database and website for the census, starting with the section that is now completed, Greek authors 19th to 21st centuries. A specially funded workshop was set up in the Department of Classical Studies at Boston College in the spring of 2018, in which workshop 6 undergraduates worked as research assistants, completing the data entry of authors A through C including Cavafy. In 2018, the census changed its status to independent, leaving Boston College with my second retirement and seeking new partners. Since the beginning of 2020, the census has benefited from the support of the Ekaterini Laskaridis Foundation. A new collaboration with the University of Amsterdam was established, specifically with the university's Marilena Laskaridis Chair of Modern Greek Studies and the Department of Modern Greek Language and Culture, where Professor Maria Voletzi assembled for us a team of researchers that she and we call the Dream Team. You saw them earlier. In these last 2 years, we've made enormous progress. We're proud now to announce to you that the Greek authors of the 19th to 21st centuries is ready for presentation to you, though it remains a work in progress. In the time span of 2 years, almost 6,000 entries have been curated and entered into the database. That is the remainder of the alphabet of authors' names from D through Z. The research, starting from an automatic ingestion, is careful work requiring expertise and painstaking curation. Each collaborator tracks and checks the other's work to keep the accuracy and consistency as high as possible. The editorial team meets regularly online to review and update our policies. In parallel to the data entry and correction, the technical development of the database and the website has been advancing at this end in Boston. And here is a comment from Haralambos Pasalis of the Amsterdam Research Group. Characteristics of the census. What are the main characteristics of the census that make the project, and in particular now the Greek authors, 19th through 21st century section, unique? Though the scope is specialized because it focuses on the case of a single language, English, the section on authors includes references to both English language translations and to studies, i.e. to translated works by the literary authors and to works in criticism and interpretation about these authors. Furthermore, the census differs from most other available bibliographic resources in that it has indexed in considerable detail the contents of larger volumes, books, or journals, and we are now beginning to work with websites. With that in mind, you will see that the entries fall under one of 4 types, as they did also in the original census book. Perhaps examples can best illustrate the categories. Starting with a few works listed under the author heading of the distinguished prose writer Thanasis Valtinos, we can show you our 4 categories. Translation volumes are represented by deep blue, almost black. Translations items are smaller items which appear within larger contexts. Studies volumes are full-length works of criticism and interpretation. And studies items, again, are smaller items appearing within larger contexts. The first example, a full volume set of translations, gives you insight into how detailed our descriptions of content are. I used to call the census the iTunes of modern Greek literature. In that entry, I might point out some of the features that are included: a unique identifier, the ISBN, information on successive reprints or editions, the full description of the contents with title page and page range for each item, an indication of genre in a tag if it's not evident in the book's title, and where possible, the title of the original Greek literary work with its date of publication. If one of the Greek entries were to include also the original Greek text, we would indicate that fact by the term bilingual. A special source or location of a text might also be cited, as for instance, in the case of rare, beautifully illustrated works in the special collections of the Princeton University Library. When you view the website, you'll see that each of these characteristics can be searched for. Now, the authority heading and linked data, authors. We're fortunate to receive information from librarians in Greece and in the US with expertise in cataloging, as I call it, information science. One issue that's already been raised to us is, what is your authority heading? We have started by establishing author headings, authors in this case being Greek literary authors, sυγγραφείς, λογοτέχνες. And we link all the variant spellings of a Greek literary author's name found in sources with the Latin alphabet to the original Greek name for that author, and with an authority form that we give in English based on our transliteration scheme. Thus, all of the entries referring to Kavafis are connected to the one heading. When you view the database, you will see examples of the author headings. We've taken pains to link our census authority heading for each of our authors to external standard databases such as the Library of Congress, the National Library of Greece, and the VIAF organization. We're now moving in an additional direction, and this refers to titles and authority headings for them, to create, where possible, a similar linkage for the individual titles of literary works. For book-length translations, for instance, of novels, we're already providing the original Greek title along with its original date of publication. We've already been linking, where possible, individual translated items to the collections to which they belong, i.e. the collections of poetry. Thus, a search may be made not only on the title of a poem, but also on the title of the collection to which it belongs. A further step has begun to include with the English title of a collection of poetry, and perhaps later for individual poems, its title in Greek. Thus, even simple cases of retrieving in a single search a poem whose title in English is spelled either Ithaca with a C or Ithaca with a K will be automatically linked with the common feature of internal reference to the poem's unique title in Greek, Ithaki. Alas, this feature is not yet ready to show in action. A further comment from a member of the Amsterdam research team. Visualization lies ahead. We do not yet have snazzy maps to show to you, but we're already building the foundations for such visualization. We can show you numbers for the published translations of works by an author and for the published works about him. For each of the census's literary authors, these counts are available on the website and have also been displayed visually in a timeline. We have distinguished material types such as books, journals, dissertations, websites. In their entries in the census, publications can be identified by date and by place of origin. We have indexed many of the names of people who have collaborated in the creation of a work and identified them by their function: editor, scholar, translator, illustrator, author of front matter, etc. For each of these features and for others, counts can be made, and thus visualization can be produced. That further work on our part lies ahead, but the foundations, as you see here in these numbers, are already laid in the fields of the census records. Now, reading online, we hope that you're eager to view the census website. Only few people outside our work team have been granted a look at it to date. One of the features not mentioned thus far, but on which we intend to keep working, is the linking from the census website's entries directly to the sources where the actual text, translations or studies, can be found and read. As you will see, the census website already contains dozens of active links where an icon available online or read online leads directly to sources. But as more sources become available in digitized format, the familiar issue of copyright restrictions still stands in the way. Either a source, book, or journal has not yet been made available for reading in digital format, or it's open to readers from behind a protected firewall, where, such as for many ebooks or digitized journals, a paid subscription must first be paid. This is a dilemma that the census does not have the power to solve on its own. As we realize the importance of providing immediate online access directly from the references on the website to the actual readings, our next immediate step will be to review the corpus of posted census references to discover as many links to online sources as possible. News of interest to the census comes in practically daily. On March 1, it was announced that the platform Constellate, which partners with JSTOR, to which large platform most libraries provide access, will be including books from the Princeton University Press. If that partnership includes books in modern Greek studies, that will be an interesting initiative for all those interested in text mining in sources about Greek culture. The future outlook. The census website in the About menu lists some of the points of our future outlook. In approximately 2 years, we hope to gather in person to celebrate in panegyric fashion and in person the completion and release of the full project. Names of the project team, our sponsors, other credits, and helpful pointers all will be published on the website. Our gratitude to our generous sponsors, institutions, and individuals is immense. Our collaboration with colleagues throughout the world and with professional staff in major libraries in several countries is briefly mentioned and will be further acknowledged under credits on our website. And our advisors have been of immense inspiration to us. Those who have worked closely with us will always remain dear friends. Good collaboration establishes warm connections. On that note, we'll add here a message from our colleague, Dr. Alfred Vincent in Australia. The Australians could not be with us at this time because of the different time zone. Dr. Alfred Vincent is an honorary associate of the University of Sydney, where he had a long teaching career in modern Greek. We regret the fact that he was not able to join us in person, but he has sent us a message.
Well, let me say that it's been a great pleasure and a great honor to be able to contribute in a tiny way to Census. It is a great project, a very important project, which will be of lasting value to modern Greek studies and also to anybody interested in Greek culture. It's a way of presenting Greek culture to the world, which we've not really had so far. And I think that you all deserve enormous thanks and congratulations from all of us who will be using it.
Thank you, Dr. Vincent. And just to round up now, we are pleased to report that our team has completed what we promised to deliver by the time of this presentation. The references to English language publications by and about the Greek literary authors of the 19th through the 21st centuries, spanning the pre-established range of 200 years, 1813 through 2012, have been entered into the online database. With the progress of time, additional references or corrections to references of the same time period have come to our notice. They too have been included. We have, however, also added much new material beyond the original scope of this section. Most of the discovered new references to publications dating from 2013 to today have also been entered, except for the approximately 50 to 100 new text entries that we've collected and plan to enter in the coming days and weeks. Furthermore, we have opened the door from the chamber that included only references and links to text to create links to recorded audio and visual materials that are posted on established sites online. And as may be revealed to you later today or soon thereafter, we have likely also gone even one step further than these added steps. Now it is over to you, the future users and sponsors, to help guide us to the completion of the project. We shall be sharing the website soon with you, first now through Ben Florence demo. Please bear in mind 2 facts. The census remains a work in progress. It will only be as good as we can make it all together. We'll close with a very brief message to the census and to its audience from our respected friend, Thanasis Valtinos, recorded in 2018 by Angelos Bouras, a Boston College student and filmographer. The video clip is so brief that you might miss its message. Please listen. A final word on the value of the census project may be added.
Είναι ακριβώς αυτό που θα ήθελα να πω, σημαντικότατο, γιατί προσφέρει στο ξένο κοινό μια δυνατότητα να ενημερώνεται και να ενημερώνεται εγκύρως.
We hope that you will start enjoying the tour with Ben Florin by first noticing the domain name that has been selected for the new website.
Thank you, Dia. My name is Ben Florin. I'm a web developer who's been working on this project for a few years now, and I'm very proud to show you our creation. This is the Census of Modern Greek Literature at moderngreekliterature.org. The census has as its primary entry point searching. It's intended to search for texts. We have two kinds of searching: keyword searching, sort of the Google type search that you are used to. You search, enter a word into the box, and it looks throughout the record of the text, title, author, publication information, things of that nature, and returns a result. Those results can be filtered later on, and we'll take a look at that. There's also an advanced search, which is a pre-filtered search, so where you can specify whether the term that you're looking for is in video, or in title, or in author, or in specific fields. Just to get started, we'll do a search for Cavafy because there are a lot of returned records. These are, again, records that have Cavafy anywhere in the record. We can filter by a number of fields, whether or not the item is available online, its genre, its material type, text type, which we'll look at in a second. What we call the topic author. The topic author is the Greek creative author responsible for the work, if it's a translation, or the author who is being discussed, if the text in the record is a study. Most of these, of course, are the topic author is a Cavafy, of course. However, he's a figure of broad enough interest that he spills into texts of other authors as well. Information about translators, place of publication, other languages of publication dates, lots of things to filter by. We can sort, of course, by relevance, which is the default sort, and that's sort of decided by the search engine what you are looking for. But there are also more concrete ways of searching. Let's look at poetry by Cavafy and sort by date, oldest first. And this gives us a good view of how the translation of Cavafy evolved. From one translator in 1919 to more and more as he becomes known to the English-speaking world. There's also sorting by newest works, which is useful, sorting by the author of the work itself, and of course, a title sort. Sometimes the results for these simple searches can be confusing because the simple search does look in the entire record, and the records that we have are very rich. For example, a search for Cavafy's Ars Poetica leads to 3 works titled Ars Poetica, and another with called the Poetics of Cavafy, and some explanation of where the term Ars Poetica appears in the record comes through if you click later on. It turns out this record is an accompaniment to another translation. These records, by the way, are originally derived from the records in the print census, and we have the print version of the record associated with every record as well. In this case, it doesn't lend too much to understanding this particular record, but for longer records, it can be helpful to see both the original print record from the census and the electronic record side by side. They both offer different advantages. I'd like to show you a few of our advanced search features. One that we find most useful is looking for bilingual editions of certain authors. We can pre-filter for the bilingual editions of Cavafy, and we'll get 51 results. Bilingual in our case is in Greek and in English. There are texts, of course, that are bilingual, but in French or in English if they've had an intermediary language. But bilingual for us means Greek and English. We can filter these items too. In fact, and let me actually try a different search for bilingual Cavafy records, and I'll filter by translation volumes, and Achille Sherrard bilingual collection there at the top. Let's see, I think we have a let's sort by date. Have a perhaps a better record.
Yeah, try the collected poems of 1975.
Yes,
there
we are. And we have, where possible, Greek titles and English titles as chosen by the translator of this volume for the poem. We also have collected how the poems or items, stories are credited in the collection itself. So in the case of this volume, published poems before 1911, and year by year. In other cases, we'll have the original Greek collection that the poems were taken from. You'll notice we also have at the top of every result page the topic author's name, both a name in English and the author's Greek name, and the years of the author's life, birth and death. And this is used as an authority field that links the records across our database. We'll take another look at that in a second. Another search that I think is useful to see, if we search for Mr. Christianopoulos and refine by genre, we can see the stories kept separate from poetry, and all of this kept separate from the studies about the author. Finally, another interesting search. If we search for Zorba, and in our text types, look for just translated volumes, we have 5 book-length translations sorted by date. We can see the original Wildman translation of Zorba in 1952, followed by Peter Bean in 2014 with the full record, and a note added by the census bibliographers that the earlier translation was made by someone who did not know Greek and who worked for previous translation into French. In addition to searching, we have browsing entry points into the data. Our first and most prominent entry point is probably authors. Authors are, again, Greek creative authors, the people who wrote the texts that are translated. And all, I believe, there are around 800, perhaps just under or perhaps just over 800 such authors. Looking at Cavafy's page, we have the types of works that that are either translated or the studies listed and enumerated. The different tabs have an entire list of these works. We also have a profile page for every author, and the profile page tracks the authority names, the Library of Congress authority name with a link to the record at Library of Congress, the name used by the National Library of Greece, and the name used by VIAF, which is an attempt to build a common set of authority records shared across different library groups and different countries. We also have a list of all of the countries of publication for the author's work. You can use this to quickly look up work that came out of Australia or that came out of the United States. We have a list of every name that an author appears under in the census. One of the difficulties of the census is normalizing people's names. People are often referred to under different spellings. Sometimes an author might be translated and his name is misspelled completely or otherwise miswritten. And each of these links to the results in the census that use that name. We also have some statistical analysis of the author's work. Right now, we're just showing dates of publication. This is publication both of books about Cavafy and books, translations of works by Cavafy. And often with authors, you can see that they start simply as translations, and then as the English-speaking world latches on to them and realizes their value, they start to write studies. Another point of entry that we have for browsing is a field that we call people. And people refers to people who worked on the text, but were not the Greek creative authors. So this is translators, this is editors, illustrators, people who wrote the back matter, the front matter, editors, anyone involved in the creation of a text who is not the original Greek creative author. This is a much larger set of individuals. I think there are 5,000 or so people right now, and this number, of course, grows as new translators appear and new editors appear. Just to show you what some of these pages look like, we'll look at Edmund Keeley's record. There are 359 texts that Edmund Keeley appears in some form or another. You see that we still have 3 that are E. Keeley. People's names appear in many different ways, and as we add new works and catalog existing works, we have to constantly normalize the names, and that's one of the values of the census. And this is a list of all of the contributions of Edmund Keeley in the census. As translator, the first are his how he appeared as an author in the collected poems of Severus. Of course, he wrote Introductory, and I believe perhaps closing matter. but we have all of the different roles that they play in the census as browsing entry points. Another entry point that we have for browsing is journals. We track several hundred journals that material appeared in originally translations and studies. Included in journals, we also put online sources, websites that that present content as a journal would. The Journal of Modern Greek Studies, for instance, is of course a very rich resource, with many census entries included in it. Each of the entries that we have taken from the journal has their entry linked from this page. As you scroll down, of course, you see it's a lot of entries. There's also a link to a viewable version of the journal at its website. As I mentioned, we do have online websites as well. We'll take a look at Words Without Borders. And Words Without Borders is an online journal. In March 2009, they published, I believe, the first online, we'll call it a special issue. I'm never sure what to say with a website, but a special edition devoted to contemporary Greek literature. We're very happy when we have a resource like this because we can provide links directly to the text itself. And wherever we can do that, wherever we can provide a link to a freely available text that is not hidden beyond a publisher's firewall, we do so. You'll notice these little blue pill shaped things with text in them in the box, and any of those are clickable. The link is also in the record itself. Most of those are going to be links to texts. There are a few links to video, I believe. Finally, we have an entry point for volumes. Volumes are large works that contain many component works. For example, the Daedalus book of Greek fantasy, edited and translated by David Connolly, has various stories, and we have separate records for each, and they're combined in the volume itself. We also have works that contain multiple stories or multiple poems that are included in a work itself, especially if that if that whole work is devoted to one author. The Scattered Papers of Penelope by Angelaki Rook. We have indexed the component poems in a single text, along with links to or information about the original collection and all of the different translators who worked on this. In closing, I would like to say that this is a work in progress. We encourage your contributions in our contact us page. We have an email address where you can reach us about entries if an entry is incorrect, if you can't find something in the census, if you have suggestions for us, if you'd like to pass along any information, feel free to use this email, census@moderngreekliterature.org. The census is still growing. If we look at 2021 and translation volumes, and I'll sort by date. you'll see that we're still adding things. The early works of Athinos, recently published, and the Penguin Classics edition of The Archaeologist, all appearing in the last year, along with numerous other items, smaller items, studies, and translations of smaller pieces. I would just like to say thank you for allowing me to participate on this. I would also like to proudly announce that as of today, the census is now open for public viewing. It's accessible and should be appearing soon in Google. We just activated the public viewing today, and so it takes Google a little while to find it. But if you are looking for us, we're at moderngreekliterature.org, and we invite you to look at it and to please make suggestions.
Then the census would not be what it is if you weren't making it be what it is and will be. So thank you.
Thank you.
As you just heard, this was really our big surprise for you, in addition to the presentation today, that for now and for the foreseeable future, the census website is not only here today, as was promised, in the form of a presentation that would end shortly, but it is really there for you to start using and reading and telling us what you think and what you would like to see, what you can't find. We're willing to do tutorials. We're eager now to start this conversation because we've been working behind a closed window or screen, trying to do our best to prepare this for you. Some of us had hesitations about whether we dared yet present it, and those hesitations were overcome by a democratic majority. And so here we are, and please understand this is a work in progress, and we welcome helpful, constructive comments. And we understand, please understand that we're fallible. Please understand too that the census has partly been hampered, I would say, from the technical point of view, by the fact that it started as a book print source. And therefore, some of the constrictions that or restrictions that exist in book form have now been transferred to the website version. And you may wonder why you see certain things, and we can usually explain to you why. And we welcome constructive ideas on how to become fully online and modern if there is anything that really strikes you as surprising. And I'm also going to be a little restrictive here and just asking you to note that at the bottom of every screen, the website indicates that it is being presented under a Creative Commons license, which is, of course, open access, and it prescribes the sharing of the census by others with proper attribution, share alike, and also for non-commercial use. So the way we are offering this open access, we hope that everybody will honor that in the future too, so that this information can be improved by your contributions and can also continue to be shared freely to the rest of the interested audience. Thank you. We're now moving ahead to the question and answer period, because we would like very much to hear your reflections, comments, and questions. We're asking you to use the Q&A feature of the webinar. The chat has reportedly been disabled, and we again ask you please to use English where possible. If you can't, type in Greek, and we will do our best at this end to convey among ourselves the question. Peter Klapes will be moderating or is moderating already, and Ben and I shall attempt to give you answers.
Here, and I look forward to receiving your questions in the Q&A here on Zoom on the bottom of your Zoom screen. As questions come in, I just want to say that it's just been an honor to to work on the census for the past 7 years, indeed since I've started at Boston College. I studied modern Greek at BC, modern Greek language here for 2 years. And during that time, it was great. And I've also done some research and writing on modern Greek literature. In fact, one of my publications even actually appears in the census, which has been quite an honor. Having this kind of insider's access to the census, for the past 7 years, I can say that I've already taken very good advantage of it. So I'm really excited that the world now will be able to to benefit from this great resource. So I see that some questions are coming in. One is about the academic institutions in Greece and Cyprus, which exactly are participating, and whether the Academy of Athens is currently involved with the project. So we can start maybe with that question.
This is a great question for you, Ben. But we have had wonderful contact with the Gennadios Library of the American School of Classical Studies in Greece. We've had initial contact with the Ethniko Idrima Erevnon. We have friends and colleagues at many other libraries, and certainly in many departments of universities in Greece. And we do hope very much for a collaboration from each person as an individual, and we would welcome suggestions and offers of institutional collaboration.
Great. So our next question is about the clickable map that was mentioned, one of our great visualization tools here in the census. Ben, perhaps you'd like to demonstrate.
Well, we unfortunately there's not a map to demonstrate right now. We do have geographic information on as many of the books that we can, and that information actually does include latitudes and longitudes of places of publication, and I believe latitudes and longitudes of author origin as well. We've experimented with a few map presentations, but none of them have made us very happy. So I do think it's something that we're planning on adding as soon as we can, once we have a little better understanding of the cartographic problem.
One thing I like very much, Ben, is that you've given us access both to the specific place of publication or city of publication, and then under the author's profile, as you also, the listing of the frequencies is by country of publication. So there's a refinement or a generalization that is possible in geographic terms.
It seems there's some interest in the chart of the number of works about poetry, and and works about the poetry, and then the poetry itself. So maybe
sure.
Ben, you can.
I'll share my screen to demonstrate. Right now, this feature is only available for author records. we'll show a different one this time. It's if you go to our author browsing screen, and it's always best to have one with a particularly large number of text associated with them. So Kazantzakis, of course, is a great choice. And in the author's page, there is a tab called Profile. And the profile contains information about the author. And it's at the bottom where you see the graph with the text, both about and by Kazantzakis. The blue texts are by Kazantzakis, and about there's the lighter color. We don't have this available yet for other searches and for other ways of entry, like journals or people, because it's a little harder to do. But you can find this in the profile page of the About the Author.
Thank you, Ben. Seems that we're having questions about how best we can get this database and resource out to the world. Somebody here mentions, for example, the New York Public Library. How the census plans on getting out there into libraries, into academic institutions around the world. What are sort of our plans there and our next steps there?
At the moment, I would want to rely on Ben for his knowledge of library networks. We were very fortunate in the past with Evro Leighton working with the Modern Greek Studies Association as a group and establishing direct library connections. There is, however, an active library consortium with a listserv where such a request and a notice and a request could be posted. And it's the famous, I hesitate to pronounce it, but it's Kochelse, or the Consortium of Hellenic Studies Libraries. The title is being given by me rather loosely, but there are linked organizations and institutions, or links between institutions, where proposals can be put forth. Ben, you might want to say something about publishing or posting on library websites.
Mm-hmm. As we are a free resource, where this is not this is open access data, it would be easy, of course, to get us into libraries. At this point, I think we just have to remind them who we are and find the specialist librarians around the country who maintain the lists of databases that that libraries use, and say, please put us in your resource list. This is something that I think we can start immediately.
Great, thanks. We've got a question now about anything about works and translations of earlier periods, and how those works and translations will be treated, and also what about anonymous works? How will those be treated here in the census?
All right, I'll jump in, because I do not know the standard way of listing anonymous works. At least it's not on the top of my mind, but we do have a section in the census which is called literary history, and it's the immediately next section to which we hope to advance. Within literary history, we've divided out the general works then the early modern Greek works from the 12th century down through the 18th, and finally the literary studies and texts that refer to the 19th through the 21st century. The texts of early modern Greek literature have been entered, or at least the English translations thereof and the English studies thereupon have been entered into the collection. They are not available on the website yet. And in that collection, we have actually given Anonymous as the author of the work, which has survived only by title. Whether there are other prescribed solutions that are better, I think the authority heading in a sense becomes the title. Ben?
Oh, unfortunately, my library cataloging hat has grown a little older over the years, and I would want to check with my colleagues. As bibliographers, I trust you and Professor Bacher.
Ben, our next question is about software and whether that will be open access. We have somebody here saying, asking whether or not it can be whether or not the software can be copyrighted or leased to OCLC or WorldCat, to help benefit those organizations. So take that first as a compliment of your good development, but tell us where it is and where it can be found and whether or not
our software is actually it is open access. It is open source. If we use open source tools to build it and we share it. So if another project comes along that thinks that what we do is useful for them, we have it on what's called GitHub, which is a place for people to share code. And we are happy for anyone to take a look at it and borrow what they want and make helpful suggestions if they want to. I don't think we have a link to where the code is kept on the webpage, and we should probably add that for organizations that might want to know how we did this.
Well, that seems to be all of the questions for today, and all the questions that we've got time for. I want to be mindful of the time here. So thank you all for your questions, and now to the closing part of the presentation here.
I think I'm the person to start the closing. Thank you all very much, and your work with us up to date at this moment of the presentation and in the future is what will lead this project forward. We, again, as we've said before, welcome new information. We welcome corrections. We welcome suggestions as to features. We can't promise to fulfill everything, but we will certainly listen and be delighted to have a dialogue with you. We will be glad to hold more online, either presentations, discussions, tutorials, anything that you propose, we will listen to seriously. And we look forward to keeping the conversation going. As I said before, the census will be as good as we can all make it together. So thank you. Maria, maybe you have now something to add.
Sure. Yeah, just to join you, Dia, in thanking everyone, first of all, for being here tonight and attending this event. And of course, Dia Philippidis, Wim Bakker, the project leaders, the Boston team, and the Amsterdam team members who were also present today, and the Lascaris Foundation for supporting us. A big thanks, and have a good day or good evening to the other parts of the audience.
And Mr. Mazarakis.
Thank you, dear. It was very enlightening, the whole session. I did a reality check and searched for Aristotelis Valaoritis and also found Nanos Valaoritis. So it seems to be working quite well. And so thank you for giving this out in such a coordinated and proper way so that immediately it can be used as a valuable tool, even from now. Thank you.
Mr. Mazarakis, your inspiration and the support of your foundation has been crucial in creating the current completion of this section, and we look forward to working with you, and we hope that you will help us reach the full completion of this project the way it should be done. We're very grateful and we're very hopeful looking ahead.
Yes, we will be discussing about that. Good.
Thank you. We now say goodbye and good night to all of you, and please stay in touch with us because we want to have this just be a first connection. Thank you.